gentlemen, to another exciting episode of The Clean Talk. This episode is going to be all about understanding a hotel housekeeper's expectations from their hygiene solutions provider. To shine a light on this topic, we have with us today Mr. Alp Aksoy, Vice President Hospitality, Middle East, Africa, and Turkey, and Ms. Pamini Hemaprabha, International Housekeeping Consultant. At the outset of this episode, I'd like to welcome you both. Welcome, Pamini and Alp.
Thank you so much.
So, Pamini, let us begin with you. Give us some insight about the day-to-day challenges that a housekeeper faces.
Thank you, Samya. I think it's a wonderful question to begin with. And I've been a seasoned housekeeper for as long as I can remember, 21 years, worked in 8 countries, literally, learning and exploring the best practices of housekeeping around the globe. And I can see that housekeeping has really come a long way when we talk about people, product, processes, when we talk about AI technology, when we talk about time in motion study. Are we there as yet? I would say not yet, because I think lately housekeeping has embarked its journey on sustainability. There's a long way to go when we talk about that. There's a long way to go when we talk about talent retention. There's a long way to go about the robotics involvement in today's housekeeping. So I would say housekeeping is very much a work in progress at this stage.
Definitely it is. Alp, if I may now come to you, you work with a lot of housekeepers. What are their expectations from you? Have you seen any changes in their demands, their expectations, and all?
Yeah, I mean, as Pamini discussed, everything's becoming faster. Everything is coming with more demand these days. And when you really look at how in the last 20 years, multiple pandemics challenge the way we live, there's more and more pressure on the housekeepers these days for a reliable partner for hygiene supply. Because hygiene means the safety of your staff, the safety of your guests, the safety and the sustainability of the brand overall. And today you cannot limit certain topics to say hygiene is not only hygiene today. When you deliver hygiene, you need to be more effective, you need to be more efficient, you need to be more environmental, you need to be saving on the utilities at the same time, doing things in the smart way possible. And these are all on the housekeeper or on the operations of anybody who deals with, say, the hygiene or the cleaning operation. So diversity for almost 100 years right now, we've been partnering with housekeepers, and we're very proud to do that for a long time. And I'm very happy that it is a company which brings innovations on board to make things simpler for their lives. And we see more and more that they appreciate us for what we bring to their daily lives or to their future, to their success. And I'm very happy to see that happening.
Thank you, Alp. Pamini, would you like to add to that? What are your expectations regarding, quality and effectiveness of products from your hygiene suppliers?
Again, I think I would stick to the same line of not compromising on the quality as well as sustainable involvement from the vendors. I believe there's a lot of noise out there in us as an operation team taking part in all the sustainable. Initiatives, and the company is believing it in a big way. I think the community and we as professionals are obliged to contribute. So I think that can never be taken out of the radar when we really look for what we really want. At the same time, I think we are very mindful of the fact that what training needs do we need to bear in mind, right, Alp? I think when we actually really work with the pioneers in the industry, we hope and we really look at getting the simplified version of training for the team, because housekeeping is still very much and largely, Samya, depending on the in-house and outsource. As we speak still. And we all know that, that there's a huge difference that we still face when it comes to training. There's a certain way that we would want the training to be set for in-house team, because they are right under us. We can do so much more for them. The moment you outsource, then there are these expectations you have from the the service provider to train them in a certain way. Again, there is a kind of an understanding. So we want to really work with suppliers who bear in mind these kind of ground challenges, because housekeeping is not just going to one division. There are so many bifurcations in it. We have in-house, we have outsourced, we have people taking part in through all geographical locations. We need to really be mindful of the fact that how short, effective and quick the training can be, and what sort of refreshers do we need to keep in mind if we have to go with the certain vendors and certain hygiene solutions. There's so many lately in the market, right? There's so many, and for I think it takes a lot of time for a vendor to establish a name, and I think a lot of that goes with the training element, because I as an end user would want to work with someone who keep the sustainability as top priority in their charts. Obviously quality, but at the same time keeping training as well at the same lines, because I have to make sure that whatever comes home, I have to use it in the most effective way. And I would really be expecting vendors to participate in facilitating those on and off the job trainings regarding what the supplies that they kind of give to us.
Definitely. And since Pamini spoke extensively about sustainability, how do you as a supplier, support housekeepers who want to go the extra mile in going sustainable?
Okay, actually, that's an interesting question, because one of the things that we believe, sustainability is one of the most abused words these days.
Certainly.
So there is a need for a definition of what sustainability is. I think the first thing that comes to mind is all about the environment. But say, for example, would a very environmental product, is it necessarily very sustainable? Or one environmental product that looks very environmental, is it necessarily sustainable? Is a question that needs to be asked and needs more education of the people today, definitely. We are coming from an understanding where green products were actually the color of green, and that's not too far, only a decade ago. That's a lot of people believed it had to be green to be environmental, and that was the color. Today, thankfully, we know much more about sustainability. But say a certain formula, if you're actually shipping it from the other side of the world, putting it on an air flight, and creating all these carbon emissions to bring a product from there to here, doesn't necessarily sustainable, because actually the formula is sustainable. So there is a balance of things. I think in one of your events lately, there was a question asked, would sustainable products be expensive? And I think there was a big joke in the question, because I thought the answer was in the question, because if a product is really expensive, it wouldn't be sustainable, because we wouldn't be buying it for a long period of time. So by the dictionary meaning of sustainability, it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
So when you look at how diversity actually tries to look into sustainability, I think the easiest, of course, there's a lot of UN initiatives, there's a certain understanding from UN filters, but if you go back to 1979, I think there was a Brundtland report which talked about people, planet, and prosperity. So when we talk sustainability, we need to look into how that's helping the people, and how Pamini discussed training. It's an essential part of it, and it has less to do with products. It has more into the partnership and the expertise transferred onto the people. So planet definitely has to be there. Hey, sustainability, yes, it is about the environment, and then about the prosperity. So we don't forget the CFOs, the finance directors. We need to make sure for a solution to be long-lasting, it also has to make certain commercial sense. So once you get this balance together, in your very basic product offer, which in diversity, again, product is only a part of the solution. We believe there's a huge expertise that has to be embedded into that. However, it's a machine, a chemical product, or anything else, there's an expertise embedded into it, like a doctor giving you a medicine. Yeah. And we need to train the people who are actually going to use that product to use it in the right manner, respectful to the environment, and in the right way of efficacy, so that the operation is more efficient in terms of time, in terms of energy, in terms of water usage,
Yeah.
so that in balance, in a bright way of looking things, you actually achieve the wide range scope of a sustainable result, if that would make sense.
Oh,
So
that
it's not only
absolutely
about the
does.
environment.
Yes, true.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And thank you so much for adding that perspective. Let us not now talk about consistency and reliability of supply. Pamini, what are your thoughts about this?
I think goodwill plays a huge role. I think it's very important to work with someone who's been there in the industry for a very long time. Let's not forget the trends that we've been seeing lately, the shifts, the sustainable, depth of knowledge that anybody should have. And I think I would like to resonate a liner that Alp just said, which is so impactful, because I think, yes, we all ask for sustainability, goods or sustainability processes, but how much do we actually know? I think what is the awareness of me as a professional in terms of the chemicals that I'm gonna buy, let's say, from the service providers or from these well-established goodwills, reputative institutions. The question again comes that, are we open to that discussion? Are we open to that knowledge seeking process as a professionals? So yes, I want to buy this because it's sustainable. I've been given a brief. It meets my budget requirements. Am I done with that much? I believe that we should go a couple of steps beyond that. We should really show some interest in taking part on those. What goes behind a chemical making process? How do we enrich ourselves, day to day? What do I know beyond the name and the label of that chemical? There should be some sort of a curiosity that we as a professional must generate within the divisions. I don't know if Alp would agree on that, totally. Asking Alp, Alp, I want to be a part of your training. Could you please give me that sort of an exposure? That's what you pretty much do with the linen vendors or anyone. They take you to the mills, they give you how yarn, warp and weft is made, all of that. So I believe how much interest are we showing is also a matter of, I think, a topic that housekeepers must embark on. I feel that. Definitely.
That's a very good point, Pamini. And now, Alp, the role of suppliers, actually, how do you ensure that there is consistent product supply throughout? And, in circumstances where there are shortages, how do you deal with it? As in shortages of raw materials or something. How do you deal with it?
Well, since COVID, I think that's been the question when all the supply chain was interrupted by or accidents over or lack of containers in China and all that. Of course, I mean the thing is, again, when you look at it as a global company, for one thing, I think one of the most important things we need to discuss is the workforce is very mobile these days. So somebody who's working in the UK could end up in Dubai or the other way around. Yes, you would know. or the same way, you could end up in the US or in Australia or in China. And again, today's fast environment doesn't have the luxury to learn things over and over and over again. And that's when you need to rely on reliable suppliers. And those reliable suppliers normally should be able to deliver you a standard global package so that if you go anywhere else, you know your product, you know what color it is, you know how it's going to act, so that very quickly and efficiently you can be a part of the solution. Very quickly and efficiently you can train your team. Now, when you look at the diversity portfolio, and I have to speak of my experience, of course, we're talking about more than 2,000 products. So in the case that we are not able to manage our supply chain as effectively as we plan to, we have always different options for our customers. Sometimes temporarily, sometimes actually we use it for an excuse to start an innovation, take people out of the comfort zone and try something that's actually going to make their lives easier. But again, when you have to work within a global frame, you have multiple factories. I mean, when you look at us, for example, we have our factory over here in the UAE, but we also have factories in Morocco, UAE, in Turkey, or in Kenya. So we have the flexibility to be able to ship things around to make sure that if there is a critical product that will resolve the our customers, our partners need at that point in time, we are able to deliver it for them. And we do it as sustainable and as environmental, as little carbon emissions as possible each and every time.
Definitely, as Pamini also said, goodwill plays a great role in this, and diversity definitely has a goodwill in the market. Now, let us also talk about training and support from suppliers. Alp, do you think ongoing education on new products and best practices ultimately fetches a loyal customer base for the suppliers?
100%. If we can get the focus, actually, because again, I have this joke, like when my wife actually asks me, did I wash my hands coming from the market? I normally react. I am in the hygiene business and I react. It's very funny. We take hygiene as a given.
Okay.
And when we take hygiene as a given, many times we overlook certain needs that our teams might have. Don't forget, when you look at the teams who deliver hygiene in our operations, they come from different cultures, they come from different educational backgrounds, and our understanding of hygiene or the demand of our operation might not be the same as their understanding of hygiene. So once the operations realize that training needs to be there, and that training will deliver them a long-term result, then we're talking. I mean, I was actually yesterday, I was in one of our beautiful malls in the UAE, and with the heat on, hey, I said, let me do some family chores. And while I was walking on a third floor, I saw the whole marble of the place ruined because of a malpractice of product and machine. Now, that is the lack of training.
Yeah.
That is the lack of training, and someone who didn't realize things were going wrong just kept on doing what he was doing until the whole floor was gone. Now there's going to be time spent on it, more product going to spend on it, more people are going to try to fix the problem. So training comes here as a very critical factor, that you have to partner with people who know what they're doing at the first time, at the first go. Otherwise, we're not sustainable either.
Yeah. True.
We are not sustainable, not pleasing our finance directors, because we are going to spend
More
another
time
budget
and resources
to fix the problem. We're going to probably spend more water, so not good for the environment. We're probably going to spend more energy, some kind of electricity or fuel, again, not good for the environment. So it doesn't make smart sense at the end of the day. Training is at the top of everything. At the top of everything.
Definitely. Thank you, Alp. Now, we can't be talking about housekeeping and not discuss budget constraints, right, Pamini? So, budget is almost always a problem, and I wonder how you balance budget constraints with quality. How do you manage it, Pamini?
I think sometimes that becomes the elephant in the room, but then I believe if you're a passionate professional, and then you talk on all that we just discussed, having a smart training plan, deciding to working with a vendor who has credibility in the business, where our role and our contribution to sustainability processes are high, I believe then it becomes a very imperative and a very responsible role for that division head to put the foot down and not settle for less, I believe. And I think there are amazing director of finances these days. And I've had, in my experience, work with some of the great finance directors, where I must confess that initial conversation is not always the final conversation. I think you have to go through a couple of, catch-ups with them, but they are open. These days, I think housekeeping has reached a position where the amazing workshops you do, the awards and the rewards, and the noise that the sector is making, I believe is reaching to the ears of all the finance directors, and they are open. I believe every company's DNA has sustainability as part of their commitment, talent retention as part of their commitment, providing the best quality product and process to our guests as well as to staff as part of their commitment. And why wouldn't then a director of finance would question that? But I believe the art of reaching to him is something that all the people have to work on. I think the words that you choose to express what you want matters. I believe housekeepers, I've always said that in many of my workshops, that housekeepers have to be very good with numbers. When you talk to director of finance, you have to pitch your project, your initiatives through numbers, because that's what they like. And numbers doesn't have to be always the profit and loss, because we all know that housekeeping is not a revenue generating division. But at the same time, I believe housekeeping is a minimizing of losses. It's a business, it's a division that takes care of your assets, that if you just now how Alp said, if you maintain your assets properly, if you have right people, right training structure, you actually prevents the depreciation of it, right? So in that way, you play a very pivotal role. And I believe if we embark on certain process that we would like to have it in a way that it works on our hotel or the upkeep of any of the place, I believe we need to know the right mantra of putting it through to the director of finance.
The art of negotiation,
and that has to be numbers. It's like, if the director of finance, must feel the music in his ear, it has to be through numbers.
Yeah,
so we have to speak in their language. And I believe all housekeepers have to kind of get that sort of a balance. But on a moral grounds, on a responsibility level, I would say that it's our responsibility to make sure that the best is given to our guests, best is given to our team members. And sometimes working with smart processes and smart equipments and smart products is not enough. I think the smart thinking, smart training plans, and smart way of managing people, resources, that's important, because everything would fail if you don't have the right manpower.
100%.
And a team can be as good as the leader, right? So everything starts from the top. As they say, fish stinks from the head. So
God.
you need to always remember that if you're a leader, there will always be that sort of a responsibility on you, and you have to constantly fight for what you want, not because you want it, but that is right. That is the right way of pleasing our guests. That's the right way of creating future leaders, because whoever is working with you is a future leader tomorrow. And I think it's our responsibility to walk the talk and be the role model for our team members, so they know when they become department head, they don't compromise. And something I would really want to say it in a very subtle way is also that most of the times when we work, we see the department head knowing a lot of things, but the immediate number 2 doesn't know as much. There could be various reasons, but I believe that it's our responsibility to curate and cultivate the next generation of talent.
Correct.
And I think knowledge is something that the more you give, the better it flourishes.
Of course.
And I think knowledge has to be shared without any bifurcations, barricades, boundaries. I believe the number 2s and the number 3s in any organization have to be looped into the process of how to do the P&Ls, how to do capex, how to put the 5-year plan. Must be taken in that closed room conversations with your director of finance. They should be at the receiving end. I think these are something that we all as a leaders have to think about. Sometimes we get so lost in our busy day-to-day lives, we don't value these best process or best techniques of looping the people. I've seen many people, like amazing great leaders, but their immediate number 2s are a bit aloof. So then the catch point is that I think the responsibility also goes that way, because then whatever you fight for, you have another generation to take that legacy forward and keep the flag,
flying. Excellent. And now, before we conclude this episode, let's briefly discuss the importance of open communication between housekeepers and suppliers. So, comments from both of you, please.
May I before we go on to that, can I jump back onto the budget thing?
Sure.
Because there's a Turkish saying, and in my experience, it's not the best thing to ever try to translate these sayings, but it goes something like, I wouldn't be rich enough to buy a cheap shoe.
Wow.
Yeah? Because the moment you wear that cheap shoe for a while, your hip is going to dislocate, your shoulder is going to start hurting. So you just saved a lot of money buying a cheaper shoe. But the results actually affect your whole being.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at any hygiene product today in the world, however expensive you might think it is, when you put it in a budget, it brings a smile. because it's not even in the 1,000th of the life of a procurement guy. But we trick ourselves constantly talking about percentages. 5% saving there, 10% saving there, 15% saving there, where actually that money doesn't necessarily matter in the life, especially in the life of a UAE hotel, for example. But the risks you are taking, chipping off these 5%, 10%, is enormous. And I'm with Pamini on this. Smart, I think, is the right word. We have to do things as smart as possible and in a balanced way. And I think the bigger picture is very important. I think any hotel or any operation should look into their budget process to see how it actually involves, say, a housekeeper to bring better efficiency to the whole business. If I say that you should cut on your hygiene costs, and that person has to say cut on the fragrance that she puts into the room, or doesn't spend the right enough time to clean the room properly, you will actually see your hip dislocating when the guest actually files for a problem.
Yeah.
And you lose a guest. Getting that guest back, spending the marketing money on it is more expensive than the money that you would spend back in the house when you were supposed to do the right thing at the right place. I think we need to review those processes to be able to empower our managers, level 1, level 2s, level 3s.
Absolutely.
To say we are seeing the bigger picture and we are going to serve the bigger picture. For one thing, when I look at housekeepers, I think it is the most intimate version of back of the house, because the beds they prepare, the rooms that they prepare is the ones that touch the guest. I sometimes say they are the ones that actually prepare the hug for the guest.
Yeah.
So how many times do you went to a hotel and you went into a bed and you smiled going into those sheets? That smile is what a housekeeper works on.
Yeah.
And if you can get that smile, that hotel brand will prosper, that hotel will prosper, and possibly you have a very happy and smart, educated team behind that, delivering that for you. I'm very sorry. I had to.
That's, I think, very wisely put. I would like to echo something with what Alp just said. I know we are very mindful of the time, but I believe numbers, what you exactly mentioned for budgetary purposes, that we need to know. Numbers for guest experience also matters.
Correct.
Numbers are numbers.
Definitely.
It's about what I buy versus what I save is one number. But how my guest matrix, their sentiments have been, their experiences have been. There are so many, tools out there which constantly measure these things. So those numbers are absolutely magical as well. Those numbers also have to be looped in with these numbers when we talk about. And let's not forget that we live in a digital era, right? So a good comment reaches millions.
Correct.
Within minutes, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So we have to be very mindful of the fact that let's not settle for something that is average or good. Good is never good enough. So if we have to look for an exemplary score on guest sentiments, on guest experiences, we have to, take steps forwards on budgetary elements. Let's not compromise, because none of that would matter if we have, if we are not successful in creating a right word of mouth. Imagine what could happen in today's digital era when there is a complaint that's on Instagram, that's on social media, and it's been reshared, retweeted, reliked. What's going to happen? I think all numbers would fall flat.
Yeah.
So I think our aim is to make sure the end user, which is our guest, and the end provider, which is our staff, is going through the smart action plan. You need to have a smart hiring, smart training, smart products, smart tools. At the same time, making sure that all the numbers are pitched onto the right direction, because that's what all parties want.
Correct.
Whether it's a service provider, whether it's your financer, whether it's a frontliner, whether it's a back of the house team member. I think everything in tourism industry works towards guests. So guest is the ultimate judge. And guess what? They are in the race where they know a lot more than we do.
Yeah.
Gone are the days when we were echoing and advocating about, okay, this is what we have new. Our guests are super intellectual. They know a lot about what a good service is, what a good product is. Many great ideas are coming through them to
Yeah.
us. So I think we have to be very mindful of this era that we live in. And I think then we need to be very, we need to be smartly putting our numbers
Correct.
on a blank sheet to get to where we want.
Correct.
Definitely. Very well said. And now, before we conclude this episode, final comments from both of you about the kind of communication that you would like to have, as a supplier and a housekeeper. So let's start with Alp.
Okay, so I work for a company that's quite hard to explain, to tell you the truth. And this is a joke between our teams as well. And I see that when we actually interact with our customers as well. And it's been 30 years in the sector for me now. And I really like when I'm with Pamini and Tatiana and similar housekeepers who really know what they're doing, I feel I'm together with partners. So life is happy for me, to tell you the truth. But when you look at how diversity should be perceived by our partners, that is a question we also ask within our teams. And I generally see that we are kind of doctors. We are doctors prescribing certain health solutions, in this time hygiene solutions, of course. And I'm thinking, some people think that we come with a cost. But then also, when somebody says there are two kinds of aspirins, one will work, which is at 100 price, and the other might not work, but hey, it normally does the job most of the time, but it's a 80 price. I'm thinking, which one would I take? I would go for the 100, which will do the job. Because the risk of what my medicine not doing the job is always more expensive than doing the job. When I entered the company, again, long time ago, the company motto was hygiene without headaches. And I think again, in this fast-paced environment that we live in, I think no headaches is a very important commitment. Now, next to it, I have to say no headaches and with a lot of innovation, which brings sustainability to you. I think that will bring it together. And that's what diversity is all about. And the moment we face managers like Pamini, who have an open mind, who are seeking to do the smart thing, we feel home. Because the expertise that we have can be transferred easily and turned into a better project because we're able to talk to each other.
Yeah.
In my experience, I have so many cases when the diversity guy in that spot saved a Serpentine marble, saved a couch, saved a carpet that actually paid for 10 years of diversity spend at that hotel. So doing the smart thing is always the most cost-efficient, cost-wise thing as well.
Yeah.
Everybody can do chemicals. I can do chemicals at my garage today. But that is a huge risk an operation cannot take. And we hope that our partners in general, will realize that. They will have the bandwidth and the communication that can discuss with their higher operations, with their finance directors. Because there's an understanding of total cost. And the total cost is not about the money you spend on, say, chemical detergents. You need to have a balanced hygiene solution with the machines, with the right tools, with the right doctors backing you up, that can train your people at all times, that they deliver to their 100%, 110% for their happiness, for their retention. And at the end of the day, you have an operation without any headaches, sustainable, and for a long time, happy and successful.
Perfect.
Thank you, Alp. And Pamini, your comments?
I think going back to the doctor element that Alp has very wisely brought into, if we were to meet a set of doctors, we always choose, I would like to have an appointment with this particular doctor versus the few other. Why is that? I believe the comfort is there, the way the doctor perceives you, you feel safe,
I think the trust.
the trust. And I think everything that I'll just said about doctors, I think the theory applies, same with our product vendors as well, hygiene vendors as well, because that's what a housekeeper wants to feel.
Correct.
Right? It's like picking up the right service provider because they feel safe, because they feel that they are set for success, that if there is any challenges that they would embark on, or they face, the vendor is going to come immediately to their rescue, and without having to go through a certain protocol, say that I've got you, I've got this covered. I think that's the key to success. And I have again worked with Diversity in the past as well, and I've worked with Alp. And I think this sort of synergy is very important, where two professionals from different divisions are able to meet and talk. And I think we are meeting after a very long time, and it just feels like yesterday, right, Alp? And I think that's the warmth, and that's the trust I think the professionals have to take on one another. Challenges are not decreasing by any stretch of imagination. The expectations are only increasing. The roles that both of us have to play in our divisions are quite similar, I believe. The amount of KPIs that you have to meet in your respective divisions. Above all, I think the synergy that we create is the key, because once you feel safe with a certain face, with a certain person, with a certain protocol and a process, I believe that goes around, right? I think no housekeeper stays anywhere for like decades or something. The people constantly move. And so does the experience, I think. Right?
Yeah.
You meet different people, and then you always resonate with a couple of people. They are always in your mind. Okay, it was a bliss working with this person. It was a bliss working with this company. And I believe everything comes down to synergy. You take it anywhere. Networking is key, Samya. I would say that the ability to talk and the ability to take the other person into confidence is the key. Because you have what differentiates between an average to a extreme better performer is their skills, absolute people management skills. And that's what I think brands like yours, Diversity, and other people have earned it over the years. And professionals like us, we want to work with them not because they're established, but because they make our day-to-day life easy.
Yes,
And they set us for success. I still remember one of the most important beautiful experience I've had with Diversity was I was invited during one of the female week celebration. I believe there was a lady empowerment week you did.
Correct.
It still echoes in my mind, and it so resonates with me. I think you were the only I must say the supplier or the service provider who invited us, and it was so nice interacting with another female empowering units on the other division, which are acting back-end teams, right, working together. But I think things like that also helps, right? If you have a partner that is thinking beyond the product, beyond the
inspiring each other, I think.
Inspiring
Inspiring
each other, coming up
each
with
other,
best
and
practices.
also building the relationship, going the extra mile.
Extremely important. I can say that happened many years ago, but
Correct.
it's still so fresh in my mind.
Almost 10 years ago,
Exactly.
we were discussing
Wow.
inclusion back then. Yes.
Yes, and I think that was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. I think so. We should also look at beyond profit loss. We should look at beyond, business relationship. We should say, how do one sector empower the other? What can we do as best practices and create a culture that the rest of it embraces and embarks on?
Definitely. Thank you so much. With that, we'll conclude this episode. Thank you so much for joining us, Alp and Pamini, both of you. It was lovely to hear from both of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Samia.
Pleasure.
This episode is brought to you by Diversity. With that, we conclude this episode. Thank you so much for joining us, Alp and Pamini. And to our listeners, if you like this episode, don't forget to give us a thumbs up and share to spread the word. Thank you.